It seems like Twitter never changes anything for the best, at least according to every single opinion piece that comes out after Twitter changes something. So recently, Twitter changed the way it handles @replies. Now, the people that you respond to, those characters that you use to write out their names, those no longer count towards your 140 characters total. So that means that you could theoretically, and I'm not sure how exactly it breaks down, I'm sure there's a limit, but it seems right now that you could basically do an @reply, like a chain, with every Twitter user in the world. I'm sure I'm wrong. I'm sure there's like, oh no, you can only add like 50 people or whatever. It made things very confusing for a while. And everything Twitter changed. Oh yeah, they also got rid of the egg. The iconic egg picture that is almost synonymous with Twitter abuse. And we're gonna get into that later. Every time Twitter changes something, people complain about two specific things. One is that they still haven't figured out a way to add an edit button so you can edit tweets you already sent out. Sometimes you're writing something and you wrote something really insightful or something really funny, but there was a little spelling mistake that you didn't catch, and now you don't want to delete it and then write again because it makes you look like a spaz. This is something that Twitter users have been asking for a very long time, a way to edit tweets. And some 10 years later, Twitter still hasn't figured out a way to address this yet. Who knows, maybe they'll just never give us an edit button. Which is, you could easily argue, the one change Twitter users want. The other thing people complain about is that Twitter has an abuse/harassment problem. People have long argued that Twitter just doesn't do enough to curb abuse, to curb people going out of their way to, and this is where things start falling apart for me, to basically say mean things to them on Twitter. You have the ability to block somebody, you have the ability to mute somebody. So whenever somebody's complaining about like, oh, I was the target of abuse, and they always make it sound like they're like refugees from a war-torn nation, like the worst thing that could happen to a person is like 4 people send you some mean shit on Twitter. They make it sound like it's like a humanitarian crisis. And that's where they kind of lose me. Because I understand, let me make this something very clear. There's a lot of people who argue for like, oh, the right to harass or the right to abuse, and there's the whole matter of free speech, and it's dicey because Twitter is not the government, so technically being a private company, they can enforce whatever rules about conduct they want. So is it a matter of free speech? But at the same time, even though they're not the government, so it's not exactly censorship, should we expect companies to abide by these values of free speech and free communication? It's a very complicated conversation that I'm probably not qualified to speak about. But I can talk about my own experience in what pertains to Twitter harassment, Twitter abuse, and how to deal with that. See, here's the thing. We care perhaps way too much about words on a computer screen. And you can argue all you want about the emotional, the psychological effect that these people, these harassers, can cause on a target when they're organized and trying to really just ruin this person's online experience. And I understand that. I'm sure you have a point. But at the same time, I can't help but shake this image of Twitter being a kindergarten class and people just asking for more teachers to be constantly policing everybody. The first thing is, the size of Twitter, the amount of users it has, even though it's been a little on the decline in what pertains to acquiring new users, Twitter is just so big that they will never have the manpower to police the site to the extent that these people ask for. So this idea that there's gonna be this overbearing entity, this authority figure within Twitter that's just gonna flag these people immediately and delete their accounts, and then you're gonna be free from harassment, or again, conflating something, saying something mean to you with harassment sounds like it's, to me at least, and again, I might be wrong, but it almost strikes me as a weasel word. It's not. And again, people, whenever I have this opinion, they're like, hey, why can't you just block people? Why can't you just block or mute this person? Nobody is so dedicated that they'll create a new account for every time you block them. At the most, and I speak from personal experience, they'll do that maybe twice, maybe 3 times. For the most part, people don't care that much about you. This gets especially dicey when people start conflating disagreeing with somebody with harassment and bullying. Some people just are not built to have somebody say that they're wrong. So they will whine and try to silence somebody doing that. But again, for the sake of this discussion, we're assuming that people are actually antagonizing you and actually attacking you and saying really mean things to you. Take it from somebody who's seen pretty much everything in what pertains to being attacked on the internet. If you let these people know that this is bugging you, this should not be news to anybody. If you let people know that they're actually bothering you, they will double down. They will continue to do this. If you block somebody and they not even mention what they're saying, they'll move on because you're a boring target. You're not giving them the reaction they were hoping to get out of you. And to cry for Twitter police, that's kind of what they're hoping you'll do. They are hoping that you'll freak out, that you'll ask for the teacher. And as for asking for Twitter police to be paying attention to what everybody's saying and doing on the internet, that's kind of what they're hoping you will do, to break down and cry and type some sob story and call for the teacher because that mean kid is staring at you. I don't know, I have a hard time relating with that. I just don't care that much about words on this computer screen because for the most part, all you have to do is that. The moment you do that, these people have ceased to exist. And I know people say, well, but why should I remove myself from the situation if they're the ones who are wrong? Why should I deprive myself of being on the internet if they're the ones who are wrong? I fully agree with you from a moral and ethical standpoint. I agree with you. You should not remove yourself from a place because somebody else is being a dick. But while I hold some moral stances on the subject, I also have the pragmatic stance on the subject. If people are pissing me off because I wrote a certain article or made a video that people really hated, and then that one day my mentions are just non-stop, literally hundreds of people telling me to kill myself, you know what? Maybe it's time for me to put my phone down and go play video games and work on my new book or do anything else that is not being on Twitter. Whenever I tell people this, they'll say, well, but you're blaming the victim. You're blaming the victim. Nah, not really. Blaming the victim would be to say that this is happening because they did this thing and they deserve it. That the abusers and harassers, whatever you want to call them, are right in doing this. That this is your fault. You caused this. That would be blaming the victim. I'm not blaming the victim as much as I'm saying, hey, you're giving them exactly what they set out to get out of you. Does Twitter have issues with people misbehaving on their network? 100%. There's no denying. We have a bunch of Nazis, and I'm not talking like Nazis in the sense of like, oh, you disagree about my specific brand of philosophy, you're a fucking Nazi. No, I mean like legit, actual Nazis. Yes. With ISIS supporters. Yes, there's a bunch of shitty people on the internet. But at the same time, the thing is, there's shitty people everywhere in the world, and I just don't think you can fully remove them from a platform. I'm not saying Twitter should give up. I'm not saying Twitter should not do anything at all to address the problem with harassment. I don't know what they could do. That's definitely not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is this. You have more power over your own life and your own feelings than random strangers that are basically little letters on your computer, on your phone screen. You have more power about how you decide to feel and how you decide to act than these people do. So the next time somebody comes, and again, I am speaking from experience. Somebody's saying some shit, somebody figured out a way to bother you, they figured out the one thing they can say to just annoy you, block, and move on. Engage with somebody that you enjoy. Flip that shit on its head. Every time somebody's trying to make Twitter shitty for you, block them or mute them or whatever you want to say and block the next, I don't know, worst case scenario, 5 people to send after you. And then engage with somebody that you enjoy talking to about a subject that you like. This is not even just for Twitter, this is for life. Don't let shitty people determine how you feel and what you're going to do. But that's my impression on this. I'm fully open to the possibility that I'm just full of shit. Let me know in the comments, I know you will. But that's all the time I have for today. I'll see you guys next time.